want to create to achieve a higher level of participation in Serbia to make it institutionalized. We were inspired by Irena Stik at work, and she was a massive support to us from the very beginning. We were involved in the assembly that were organized by the Institute of Philosophy and Social Theory. And from there, as she told this morning, we actually started practicing this thing. So just a short contextual explanation how participation in urban planning looks in Serbia. So as we call it in the urban theory, it's a rational approach, which means top-down, and the experts are the only one who knows what is good, and there is no experience that should be shared, instead of being collaborative approach, even though they are labeling often the planning system like that. Collaborative would mean that you have different voices and perspective heard, and they're all included in the process of planning. It's trying to minimize participation, presenting the urban planning as exclusively professional field, but also politically neutral. It's very politicized, it's highly corrupted as well, and it's like, it escalated quickly. So they are like, really, like the level of polarization and fights that it's not so present is really unbearable. So the main characteristic is not transparent, not participatory. There is a lack of protection of public interest that you see in those materials and how it's implemented in the real life. There is a lack of horizontal and vertical collaboration between the institutions. That's also like the authorities are overlapping. The institutions are not sure who should do what. So if you are asking for specific information, you get lost in the bureaucratic system and so on. So there are mere formality are defined by the regulation with different roles and rule books. And this is just important to remember that we have two mechanisms for participation. We call them uvits, so it's inside. You just like see the documentation. You don't have, especially in this phase, any kind of exchange. And then here, which is a longer phase, this is 15 days, this is 30 days. It's followed by the discussion, a public discussion with a planning commission where you kind of have a conversation. And it's really constant conflicts between the citizens and institutions and high level of distrust. As I mentioned, we really produce a lot of materials, but also research and public pool opinions that we did in the last few years. And what our research showed is that Belgrade citizens, this was the public pool opinion done in 2021. So almost every second citizen of Belgrade thinks that the Belgrade is developed according to the private interest of those who are in power. Almost 63% feel that they are not involved in the planning process. Almost 50% feel that they are not informed about the city development and major projects. And what is actually for us was the most valuable thing is the significant change in the attitude of citizens after they are being informed. So we posed the questions about how they feel on building at Košutnjak. That's a city forest, very important for the city, and Czech investor wants to build 4 million square meters or something like that of like super fancy real estate. And then people will be like, yeah, we are supportive, yeah, that's a progress and so on. Then we say, yeah, but we are cutting the forest and, you know, the climate change and air pollution and so on, and then it decreases. What happens if you build in Kalemegdan? Kalemegdan lose the protection as the most important heritage. The support goes down. So for us, that was a sign that if they are informed in the proper way, they know how to bring decisions that are actually that are important for all of us. And the third thing is the monitoring report. This is from the year 2021. We are hopefully finishing for the last year now the report. We did the quantitative research on the level of participation. So it's like really a minimum that law says that they should organize in terms of like having other people's opinions about the plans. So it's 1/3 of the available opportunities that were realized during the 2021, and we analyzed 110 plans on the territory of Belgrade for that year. So that's why we actually thought that we should introduce these new mechanisms into the whole process. and also think about what are the specific things that we need to think about when we are transforming this tool into, or bringing this tool into the urban planning field. So what Irena was saying, who is affected, so who are the participants, to who we want to bring there and whose opinions we want to hear. Then who falls into the category of interested parties, so we want to have decision makers, investors, experts, local community, but not only local community who lives there, also those who are working there, so people with disabilities, different interests and perspectives and so on. And then what for us is very important is the translation of this interest into spatial solutions. So that's something that during the moderation was usually obvious, because people come with their different requests and ideas, but you always have to put it into the plan. So plan is dealing with the spatial solutions, not with like management and governance and whatever else. So it needs to have this perspective as well. And then also what was challenging is the level of plan. We have different levels of plans, so we have detailed plans, which are most understandable, more detailed. People live in that area, they know the neighborhood, they know how to react. And then we have general plans that are more abstract. And then the conversation is more abstract and more difficult. And that's where the experts are actually very helpful. The preparation steps are, so this is, I would say, very important step. It's creating and disseminating information material. So we do analysis of everything that is available, like all the documents, and we are translating them into informational material that in the neutral way. So we don't put our perspective, what we think. So it's just like translating what is there, offering different perspectives if there are some. For example, what mayor said about the project, what local activists said about the project. So we put all these different inputs, so you get to know what is basically there in the ecosystem that is important for you to have to be informed. It's a lot of things. We prepare it for months, and then we send it both via email and on the household. Preparing the moderation scenarios, that we do that step with the professional moderators, and we do literally a scenario, like minute from minute, what is happening, how the conversation is guided, what we want to have from there. So how it starts, it's important to see if we start with a plenary session or we start first with the group sessions and then we go to plenary, so the dynamic of the assembly. And then also, do we start by mapping the problems? How long does it take? And then, so there are different, Jovana will get into these details. And then also it's important to discuss and design the logistics, so to discuss about the venue that is available to everyone, which is in the neighborhood, for example, how much time it takes. Our experience is usually 8 hours per assembly, and also people cannot be involved for 8 hours, and then you have to think if you, like, for example, for the plan, for the general plan of Belgrade, we did 16 hours, 2 days, exactly 2 weekends. And also what time of the day it's gonna take place. And as we mentioned, so there are different levels of plans that we test, where we tested this model. So we did twice for the plan of detail regulation. The first one was at the new Belgrade on a very concrete, and actually both were with very active local community that is already organized in some kind of association. Then the general plan was on the outskirts of Belgrade. And the general urban plan was with the representative sample of Belgrade citizens that were recruited by the agency that we asked to help us. And these are just to understand how, where we tested it. So this is a timeline of planning process. So the city hall makes a decision to initiate the planning process. Then you have time to plan to be designed, the draft actually. Then you have this early public insight of 15 days. Then also a break when they take all these objections and comments and implement them or reject them. or whatever, to the final proposal, public insight and public session, which lasts 30 days, and then the adoption of the plan. These are the only two stages with like deadlines, so 15 days and 30 days. And everything else can last for 1 year to 20 years. So there are plans in Belgrade that are still like ongoing 20 years after. So we tried, but for us it's not important, the timeline is not important. It's the level of information that you receive and the influence that you can achieve in different stages. So what can we do immediately after the decision was made? There is less information available, but also there is much more opportunities in the next phases to get engaged and to contribute to the whole plan. What is happening after the earliest public insight, and then during the public session when you actually have the most information, and where you actually can have also the call for action, because that's the moment where you can mobilize a wider community and get engaged into the process. Yeah, Jovana.
Yes, just to be clear, this is a kind of deliberative format, what we did, but it's actually, it goes a little bit away from the standard that both Susanna and Irena talked about. We think it's important to also talk about these kind of limitations that come from the context and also come from who is initiating the thing, because we were doing it outside of the institutions. So, not all of those standards could be fulfilled, yet we do think it's a very important experimentation process from which we learned, and these are some of the things that we want to share for what was our experience. So, when it comes to recruitment, we actually had the funds to recruit the sample, the representative sample, only once for this general urban plan. We did it through an outsourced agency. Of course, it's not an ideal representative sample, but it's close to that. Whereas in these other three forums that were more focused on a specific territory, so less than one city, smaller than one city, we actually did some kind of sampling through already active citizens that are there on the territory. Of course, that changes a lot the sample of the participants, we are aware of that, but also changes the dynamic of the conversation and the discussion. So these are some of the impressions from that. So we did get more diverse group when we had a representative sample, although their motivation wasn't as big as the already active citizens, but the rational discussion on the arguments and the different stands on the topic were much more inclusive in this with the representative sample. Here, the passion about the subject was so big that the motivation was also big, but it was very hard to change or question people's attitudes towards the topic. This is just also to share where we try to make to do things in spaces that are in the local community, and we are definitely it works because it did attract more people than if it was in some completely far away, I don't know, generic space. We did it always on Saturdays because it was our, again, attempt to have more people and not to have somebody somebody going away from work or not coming to the forum because of that. Only in this forum we had, with the sample, we had incentives for participants. In other, we didn't. Again, because of the resources. Eva mentioned who are the interested parties or who is affected. This is not an aspect that we are proud of, but it's a lot, it has to do a lot with the context. We had absolutely no collaboration or cooperation from the authorities. We did ask them to come. We even had some kind of informal agreement on the fourth one with the Urban Institute, okay, the institution that does the plan, but they didn't come, they didn't show up. So, and that of course makes a big, that's a big deal, because first of all, it would be good to have their stand, their arguments, them explaining why something is done in the plan as it is. But also, this kind of commitment to do something about it would be much more motivating for people and much more rewarding for people who do participate. So, because it's Serbia, because everything is so centralized, we didn't, as I said, we didn't get decision makers and institutions because they are under the same cap. In some potential situation, it would be good to have investors, although in these four plans we didn't have particular investors that we could recognize as some kind of interested parties. So, but generally they could be also one of those. We did have experts always from the urban and spatial planning, and then depending on the plan and depending on the main topics or aspects of the plan that were subject of deliberation, we did have also some other experts. And we just want to underline what Irena said this morning, which is that the experts being socialized in a sense in this technocratic and very rational approach to planning, experts were very suspicious of broader public or citizens having capacity to say what should be in a spatial plan. And they were very surprised. They were very surprised, and that's one of the most rewarding for us, one of the most rewarding effects of this process is that the experts actually realized that the specific expertise lies in citizens as well when it comes to planning. Zuzana mentioned there were four different units of the deliberation and formats of deliberation. This is just to say that the dynamic between them, although it is structured, and as Eva said, each forum had a scenario. We did change this depending on how we broke the topic of discussion or how we structured the discussion at all. So, and just to say that since we use these kind of informational materials to inform the discussion that were given to the participants prior to deliberation, this actually proved, again in our context, proved to be semi-successful because not everybody has the capacity, the time, the resource to read like 10 to 15 pages, and this is how what the information materials looked like. So what we tried in the third and fourth forum is actually something that looks like what Zuzana said is learning phase, which was actually going through the material content, but together in the plenum. And it turned out to be a good step or a good choice to do. These are just some of the slides. The online was because of the corona, we had to do one online. Sorry. This is the third one in Padinska Skela. Okay, so we come to the challenges, at least what is for us, what was for us challenging. So the informing process I just mentioned, what we figured out that in a sense we can't make or ensure that everybody reads the informational material, so we did try to change it, and as Susanna said, it's a work in progress, so you learn, you change some things, you try how it works. Diversity and motivation of participants is something that is again, on the one hand, it's a matter of a long process of changing the participation culture, and then the diversity, in our case, with going through active citizens groups, was of course affecting the diversity in a negative way. Whereas where we had random sampling, we reached much bigger diversity than in these three cases. Participation in institutions, we have to ensure it at one point, but again, it's one of those external limitations that we are trying to overcome. This is very connected to purposefulness of the process, and this sense of that it may, the sense of purpose of participating in any kind of process is if you believe that something will change. Neutrality, not in a sense, of course, nobody is neutral, but to actually have a larger pool of experts, to really try to have many perspectives, or to just, in that sense, maybe the better way is to have also diversity of experts in that sense. And of course, resources. We didn't talk about the exact numbers today, but I think it's good just to have like how much would it be like for one citizens assembly in Poznan, how much money did it take? For us, it was really a struggle. For example, the most complex that we did, which was the one for a general urban plan, was a bit more than 10,000 euros. It's not. Maybe it's not like a big, but for us it was very big and very expensive. And of course, it affects the quality.
The majority of the human resources, for this 10,000 euros, is for the human resources or for the logistical?
Because it was local, we didn't pay for accommodation. But for example, another organization made the National Citizen Assembly, and I think they altogether they paid 30,000, for example. It's a lot for us. It's a lot for Serbia. No. And just to finish, talking about the effects. Actually, okay, here we don't have to go through each one, but the success or the impact was minimal, although there was some impact, especially in Forum 3 and 4, but definitely, first of all, because of what Eva explained, how does our planning process function, it takes a lot of time, so in a way it loses its impact and its strength if it's if it takes so much time from one phase to another, and if we are doing, for example, between two phases of a planning, if we do a forum. But anyhow, we just wanted to say how, what was the follow-up of each of these forums. So just to finish, these are some of our points or some of our thinking of what to do next, and how to, because we do plan to continue trying this trial or this experimentation. So we do want to pay more attention to this information phase and maybe develop it into this kind of learning phase, because it is the crucial element for deliberation. Development of the specific supporting tools actually came up during the third forum, because it's specific when we have plans. It's something that is specific is that, you know, there are a lot of drawings, and people actually took spontaneously pen in their hand and started drawing on the map, you know, where should be what, and we didn't use it in the first two forums, but it really proved to be a very good tool, and to support the deliberation, the arguments and the exchange of opinions. And we did it then in the third and the fourth. Continuous collective deliberation among all participants. Frankly, I forgot what this meant. Measuring of the transformation to strengthen. This is important. Institute for Philosophy and Social Theories, Irene and Bujo, they actually, when they did citizen assemblies, because they are scientists, they measured the effects of the citizen assemblies. And of course, they had some, you know, various conclusions out of it. But for us, it would be good to, in a way, do some kind of measurement, because we think that it would be important to support and to strengthen our attempt to actually integrate it into a planning system. So we think that if there would be a proof of not only the transformation, but that there is also some kind of learning of urban planning and shaping the city during that process. So all these things, if we could prove that somehow, maybe more tangible, in a tangible way, we could maybe just strengthen our efforts to maybe transfer it into a formal setting. I think that's it.